I'm Valerie Escobar, Certified Financial Planner with Mariner Wealth Advisors. You are listening to Your Life Simplified, and I am joined today by Tracy Hutton, Senior Manager of Recruiting. Thanks for joining us, Tracy.
Thanks for having me.
I think you would be super interested to know that I took a survey, and it turns out people love their kids. And
Not surprising.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that was you and I were talking is that people will often call, like our clients will call asking you, how do I help my kid with an internship? And, I think we're sort of at the beginning of the year heading into that. So I guess maybe before we even get into a tip to get a good internship, I mean, is that even the right way? Is that the best thing to do, is to get an internship if you are, college age?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think internships are great for a couple of big reasons. One, internships let you basically test out the job before you actually do it. Mm-hmm. So you can get an opportunity to really see if it's something you like, or sometimes just as important, like if you don't like it. And the other big thing of why we encourage internships is a lot of times it can turn into a full-time position. Mm-hmm. So if you go and do the internship and you have a great experience, you do a great job, a lot of times, you'll start to develop that relationship with that firm, and then they will want to offer you a job after you graduate.
Perfect. Yeah. So we have a really nice internship program that I'm always very impressed with the people that we end up seeing here. And yeah, a lot of those are who we feel are great future employees. And so
yeah,
I would definitely agree with that. And so if we do, if you have a client that calls in and they're like, I brought to help my child get an internship, what do you recommend to be the very first step?
Yeah.
Where do they even start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'd recommend is just, start off right away. Like as a freshman, mm-hmm. Starting to go to the campus events like career fairs, start to get to know companies in your industry, learn your industry, like what are types of jobs that you can do with your major. Just really start kind of the discovery phase, get to know those like the culture, like the people that might work there. Because that'll all help you figure out what you want to do, but it'll also help you kind of get prepared. So as you go into actually doing internships and doing interviews, you'll already be used to the process. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I'd recommend is just to make sure people understand that typically you're not going to get your dream internship as a freshman. Mm-hmm. So that's okay. I think you can definitely get basically starter internships mm-hmm. where you can get experience doing and being in an office, working on a team, mm-hmm. having client service experience. And those are all things that will add to your resume that will help you prepare, as you get a little bit further into your career, in your college career, to be able to be ready to talk about your skills and abilities and do a really great job in your interviews for your internship.
Yeah. And that's a really great point, that being in an office is extremely different from mm-hmm. being in a college campus or high school class or anything like that. And you see a lot of change for, as these interns, as they progress. And so starting earlier is probably better. And I think historically, or at least maybe it's been such a long time since I was that age that I would have thought, okay, right, it was my senior year when I started thinking that way. But freshman year, that's pretty early. And so when you're thinking, okay, I'm a freshman, where do I heard you say, to start researching some firms, so maybe on the internet, but let's say what's the next step after that? What's a more concrete thing to do besides that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing I'd recommend is get connected with your campus resources. So mm-hmm. most schools are going to have a career services, and they're going to be a great resource for you to get connected with. Mm-hmm. And again, getting started right away, like as a freshman or sophomore, you can do things like, take your resume in and have it reviewed. Mm. So not just for spelling and grammar errors, but they can look at it and tell you, okay, for your major, these are the things that employers like to see on it, or this is how they like the format. So that can be really important. They can also help you figure out what to wear. They can help with mock interviews. So kind of all of those things. In addition to, they're a really great resource to talk about, okay, this is my major. These are things I'm interested in, but what are real jobs that I might be wanting to pursue? And so they can get you set up to get on some of those email lists so that you can figure out, like start seeing jobs actually come through and figure out if it's something that you want to apply for, or maybe things you don't want to apply for. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good resource. I'd say the other big one is just leveraging your network. Mm-hmm. So, if you have, friends or family, people that maybe that are doing the job that you think you're interested in, that can be a great place to start. Again, just picking up the phone or emailing them, asking if they'd be open to like a conversation, just to interview them, understand what they do. Sometimes that might be even some job shadowing, just to kind of get more exposure. And that again can help you figure out like what you want to do. And that can lead into internship opportunities down the road too. Yeah.
And I like the point where you said, when you talk to someone in your career resources center, that they can help you kind of narrow down, because sometimes, I always think it's wonderful. A college student will call or send me a message on LinkedIn or something like that, get my email and say, I'd like to just talk, because they're getting a degree in finance. And finance is extremely broad. I mean, even if we're talking financial planning, that can still have there's just so many avenues. And so you don't know what you don't know. And so, just reaching out and trying to get through that whole process can be kind of daunting, I would think. And so let's say you find your internship, and I would think it'd be different each year, but what should an intern expect once they get that internship and they arrive?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's going to be a little different depending on the industry or depending on where they're interning. But in general, your goal is to target internships that are going to give you real hands-on experience so that you can kind of see what does it actually look like in a day in the life of this role. So for us, like we do a lot of what we have our financial planning interns do is things that they would do as a full-time person starting off right away. And so that lets you kind of see what you'd be doing, but also the other part of what you're hoping your internship will be is like exposure to like your career path. So like not just what you're going to do day one when you're fresh out of school, but also what you're going to do 5 years down the road. Like what does that look like to make sure it's aligned with kind of what you want to do.
Right. And I don't know how often you get this question. Are they paid, unpaid? Do you know what they could expect as far as that?
I'd say most industries are going to be paid.
Okay.
So, I think the unpaid internships are kind of going away.
Okay.
There's probably still some, maybe that, there's probably still some exceptions, but I'd say in general, they're paid. I mean, ours are definitely paid internships.
Right.
And I'd say financial services are all going to be paid.
Okay. Is that because of the demand, or why do you think that's kind of changing?
I think it's more like labor laws. Like you can't.
Okay.
There's only so much you can do and not get paid. So for like we want ours to actually do hands-on experience. And we have to pay them. And we want to pay them because it is competitive. I think definitely a lot of the industries, like we're using the internship as a pipeline tool, right? Yes. We want to attract top talent to our firm, starting at the internship level, but also for full time. And so we want to offer a competitive salary to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think too, I think our interns generally tend to be juniors and seniors.
Yep.
So if you are a freshman and you're going into doing your internship, would you be expecting to do the same level of work as you will be when you're a senior, or would it be a little bit more entry level? What do you think would be more realistic expectations?
Yeah, I'd say probably, again, it depends on the industry or the company probably. But in general, you haven't had as much coursework. You don't have as deep of a skill set yet. And so you're probably doing more entry level work would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we really, we put a lot on our interns because we want them to learn a lot and have a lot of exposure. And I think one of the things I really value is the amount of communication that a intern is willing to give me. I remember we were talking just about how it's not just that that we're looking at the intern, but the intern's looking at us.
Yep.
As a company, as a culture. Have you had? I don't know. I don't want to say negative experiences, but maybe are there anything out there that you might say, warn a student and be like, maybe that's an indicator that that's not really a great fit for you or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's probably two kinds of things, occasionally for our interns, we're trying again to identify people that have a really strong skill set and interest in financial planning and want to pursue that long term. But, occasionally there's just people that do the internship and they're like, I don't think this is what I want to do, which is totally okay. That's part of what the internship is for. But typically I think it's probably one of two things. One, maybe it's just the actual job. Maybe they thought the job was something different than it actually was. And so now that they're seeing it, like for instance, client interaction, that can be a big thing where some people really want that. And if they're pursuing, let's say like an investments role, that, that could be a disconnect. And then sometimes too, I think maybe just the location or the size of the team or some of those pieces just may not be quite what they were envisioning. As well. But I think it's the biggest thing is just maybe the job wasn't what they were expecting.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's just all part of the process, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's definitely solid advice. Any final thoughts? Anything else that, I don't know, tips that you would throw out there for parents or for their kids that are looking?
Yeah. I guess one would be just to talk a little bit about the timeline, because I feel like we do get a lot of questions about the timeline and that's confusing.
Yeah.
So you basically want to start the year before you actually want to intern.
Okay.
So let's just, for example, if you want to intern in summer of 2024, you want to start in the fall of 2023. So that can sometimes be tricky for people because you may not know to start that, or maybe it seems weird to start that early.
Yeah.
But that I think is a key part to make sure that you get started early. And especially if you're starting as a freshman, that's going to be, that's going to be easy because you're already going to be used to it. But I'd say the other biggest thing, and you kind of touched on this, would just be that, remember at the end of the day, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, with the goal that you're really trying to find the right internship fit for you. And so I think if you keep that in mind, it's a little less scary or intimidating. Right. And more focused just on you trying to find the right career path for you.
Perfect. Tracy, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it felt very informative and helpful. You've been listening to Your Life Simplified. I'm Valerie Escobar. I was joined today by Tracy Hutton, Senior Manager of Recruiting. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening.
Mariner Wealth Advisors, or MWA, is an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Kansas. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. MWA is in compliance with the current notice filing requirements imposed upon registered investment advisors by those states in which MWA maintains clients. MWA may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Any subsequent direct communication by MWA with a prospective client shall be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. For additional information about MWA, including fees and services, please contact MWA or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website at www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money. The views expressed in this podcast is for educational purposes only and do not take into account any individual personal, financial, legal, or tax considerations. As such, the information contained herein is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice. Nothing herein should be relied upon as such, and there is no guarantee that any claims made will come to pass. The opinions are based on information and sources of information deemed to be reliable, but Mariner Wealth Advisors does not warrant the accuracy of the information. Certified Financial Planner, trademark, CFP, registered trademark, and federally registered CFP with flame design marks, collectively the CFP registered marks, are professional certification marks granted in the United States by Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, Inc., also CFP Board. The CFP, registered trademark, certification is a voluntary certification. No federal or state law or regulation requires financial planners to hold the CFP certification.